Hello and welcome back to Real French Connections. Today we'd love to introduce you to the McCamley family, whose new life in France got off to quite a challenging start. Let's find out. Welcome, McCamley family. Really thrilled to meet you and to hear your story and to meet your cat.
Yeah.
There's another one you may see at some point.
That was an adventure bringing them here.
Well, I'd like to hear about it. I hear
Oh my God.
that your arrival in France has been quite dramatic. Would you like to tell us about that? What's been going on with you guys?
Well, we almost didn't make it here just because it was so stressful to get out of our house in the compressed timeline that we had. And so we were pretty stressed out when we got here, and we're, expecting to, get right into French life and retirement and all of that. And then on the second night, I fell and broke my ankle in the house in the night. Yeah. So that was quite the unexpected.
So suddenly you are confronted with needing to get yourself to a hospital or call the ambulance. How did it all roll out?
So Lorraine, I heard her yell to me upstairs, Mike, and I thought, oh, my dream. I didn't even know she had gotten out of bed. And I said, what's wrong? And she said, I fell and I think I hurt my ankle and I can't get up. So I went down and she was sort of praying it was a sprain or something. And I looked and went, oh no, this isn't good. Mm-hmm. And we realized that somehow I managed to get her to the car. Lorraine reminded me yesterday, we have a rolling office chair. We rolled her over to the door, got her out to the car. And, it's only a 12-minute drive to Rodez Hospital. And fortunately, our friends here, and we can talk about having had an exchange student from Rodez. His father is an emergency room doctor who used to work in Rodez.
Fantastic.
That was helpful. He called ahead to the emergency room for us, and they were kind of waiting for us when we got there.
And then Tyler was able to, Tyler wasn't with us at the time, but he's fluent in French. So he was on the phone helping us get set up at the hospital, which was great.
Yeah, there was very little English spoken there. And fortunately, we had Tyler to talk us through the emergency room process. And they took Lorraine in. She got an x-ray, which was amazing. I was able to take a picture of the x-ray on my phone and send it to our doctor friend. And anyway, they admitted Lorraine, and shortly thereafter, she had it surgically repaired. And the French healthcare system and how we feel we've been taken care of, I'll let Lorraine tell you. It was really a good experience.
Yeah, there were some differences that were interesting as I'm sitting there in the hospital room. For example, there's no air conditioning in the patient rooms.
Right.
The windows open, which I was like, what? The window's open. There really wasn't any disposable. I mean, I'm used to, taking care of my mom back in the US, just disposable everything and plastic everything. And that she was always sent home with all this junk. And it was all very, it was just all very sustainable. Everything was, the silverware was real, the plates were real, the glasses were real. I had the same glass the whole time. It was filled up out of the sink. It was just a very different experience. But the care was just wonderful.
That's very good to hear, isn't it? Yeah. So what started as what must have felt like a nightmare and a bad start actually turned around to show you a very nice side, a very good side of living in France.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I received very good care. And
we had home healthcare nurses come, and that was an adventure, and it was fun. Lots of hand signals, and but they were all very nice. Everyone's very competent, very friendly. We felt very well taken, really fortunate. And Lorraine and I also have reflected on the fact that it was so stressful getting here that we sort of hate to admit it, but this was almost like a blessing in disguise because it forced us to like slow down, like,
Yeah.
okay, we've got to like ease into this now. And it's actually helped. Well, it's definitely helped now that she's out of the wheelchair. So.
Yes.
So I graduated to a boot a couple days ago, which was
We're all
And is it
Yay.
feeling okay? And I bet you will never, ever, ever forget the French word for ankle. That's it. It's in the brain. That's an adventure to this from the start, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think you also mentioned in an email that Tyler, you were one of the reasons that, in fact, this move happened. So how did that come about? And in fact, where did you come from? Where was your place of stressful departure?
So I was from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and you know, so it wasn't a long flight, terribly long flight over, but with the 2 cats, that was a little crazy.
Oh, yes.
Um, but Tyler, do you want to talk about your background here in France?
So I did an exchange year in France, 2019 to 2020. I wasn't in this region. I was sort of like, I was an hour from Paris in the Seine-et-Marne. And the exchange year got cut short about 3 months because of COVID. I went home early. But
you were able to finish up at home.
Yeah. Well, I did online school at home, online French school. So that was fun. But yeah, so I stayed with a number of different host families during my 7 months in France at that time. And actually one of them was the one who really pushed my parents to welcome a French student. I think it was about 2 years after my exchange year.
Yep.
And his name is Samuel, and he's from this region, and that's how we got to discover this area.
Yeah, so last year we did a visit, you know, made plans to come visit Sam and his family, and really just fell in love with the area. There are
and the family.
Well, yeah, and obviously, and the family. But the area is just so different than Paris, and you know, all the tourist spots. It's just a rolling hillsides, just beautiful.
And what's your actual area called, the place that you're living?
We better let him say it, so I'll say it correctly.
Yeah.
Aveyron.
You're in Aveyron. And so what is it like? Is it mainly countryside? What does it actually look like? What does it feel like? What do you love about it, about that area?
Well, Rodez is a city. There's a large 1,000-year-old cathedral right in the middle of the city. The city is very accessible. There are many vistas and vantage points from which you can see the cathedral from long distances away. But otherwise, it's very rural and countryside. I mean, literally, we're very, very close to Rodez, and I'm talking within a kilometer. There are fields with sheep and cows and cattle. And there are businesses, agribusiness, there's organic food stores, there's markets, there's good restaurants. The cost of living is probably a half to 2/3 of what we were paying in the US.
Well, in Philly.
In Philadelphia, yeah. And so we had this idea sort of, gee, what if we wanted to live here? Could we do that? And so Lorraine literally like kind of Googled, well, what would it take to move to France, you know? And it turns out it's like, you know what, we could probably do this in terms of being able to afford it and so forth. And then she found out about French Connections, and things really moved into fast forward from there.
Yeah.
So talk us through that, Lorraine. How did you find French Connections, and how did it kick off?
So I joined every Facebook group I could find just to learn. And yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are some groups that aren't the best, but and just tried to learn, and people would recommend different agencies or whatever, and one of the recommendations was French Connections. And so we got in touch with Richard and
set up a consultation.
Yeah, we set up a consultation, and that was that. But you know, there was still it did escalate things once we got hooked up with Richard, because then I was like, okay, this could really happen. And okay, if this is really going to happen, what timing works for us? And we really wanted to put our house on the market in the summer because we had a pool, and the house just would show better. And and off we went, and we did all that. Mike retired. I mean, it was just a whirlwind of activities to prepare for this.
I had been wanting to retire, and it had reached a point where if we had stayed, I probably would have continued to work, but I wasn't really happy about that.
Yeah.
And our house was too big. And when we looked into downsizing, it was still very expensive. And after having been here and seeing what some possibilities were, we thought, well, why not?
And Tyler,
Okay.
I'm intrigued. So you have then spent quite a bit of time at college in the Netherlands,
Yes.
and then your learning of French. Did that all happen? How long would you say, did it all happen, your fluency, within a year?
Yeah. I stayed with French families. I studied in French high school. I took the same courses that French students took. So the French came very quickly. And I also studied a lot of French before I went to France. And then this was in high school. And actually the first city that we visited in Europe was Amsterdam. And I really enjoyed it. So when we started looking at universities for after high school, I decided to go to the Netherlands, and I found this program at Leiden University that I just graduated from, International Studies. And so yeah, I've been in the Netherlands for the past 3 years. And then I also did a study abroad in Japan, a semester during that time. And it was very interesting to hear the development of my parents moving from the Netherlands. I was under the impression that it was going to happen a year after it actually did. It's funny because we still, by the end of the process, as early as maybe a month or 2 months ago, we still had plane tickets from Amsterdam to Philadelphia for September.
After graduation. For us to go back.
Because we thought that I was going to stay in Europe this whole summer and then go back to the US and spend time with them after I graduated. But everything moved so fast that it ended up happening this summer. And we still had that plane ticket that we ended up canceling, but it was funny to see it because we were just like, wow.
We almost forgot, and the whole thing was head spinning.
Yeah.
But it's now that the dust has finally begun to settle. Now Tyler's going to leave us again. He's going back to Japan for 3 months.
Okay.
And Lorraine and I are slowly getting settled in. I joined the local golf course. The Aveyron district only has one 18-hole golf course. I live within 10 kilometers of it. It's a beautiful course. I mean, in terms of just, again, these amazing views of the city and the surrounding countryside. There are some English speakers. I'm looking forward to meeting a guy from the UK and also an Aussie. So that should be a hoot, actually. Those guys are funny, I'm sure.
Yeah, very fun. Very much fun.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So we're slowly trying to make this adjustment, but every day we seem like, oh, well, we've got to go get bread. And there's the wine and the cheese. And it's just been, and Tyler's a great cook. We're going to miss him when he goes.
Will you be back, Tyler? Hopefully you'll be back.
Yes. Well, so when I get back from Japan, I'll be back in January.
And then he leaves again.
Then my master's starts in February. I'll be in Amsterdam for my master's.
Right.
Yeah.
But a lot closer than Philly.
Yes.
Enough to come home for the weekend.
And we don't mind visiting Amsterdam. That's a fun city.
Well, and that totally played into our thoughts about moving here, because he's such an international citizen or global citizen that we realized that he would be more accessible, and we would be more accessible if we were here in Europe.
Absolutely, yes. I really love this idea that's happened with your family, is that Tyler has had the sort of adventurous spirit, and that you also have gone with that adventurous spirit. So all three
dragged them
now in a whole new life, in a whole new country, and loving it by the sound.
Well, yeah, and we had read, both Mike and I had read an article, that and basically the main question in the article was, are you a why or why not person? And every once in a while when it's challenging, we look at each other and go, but this was a why not?
Why not?
Why not?
Yeah, right. And many of our friends fall into those two categories.
Yeah.
Many of our close friends are actually, good Lord, why are you doing that? and then other friends, and some who have some background from Europe, or some German friends and some friends who have had family in France and so forth, are sort of like, oh my gosh, why not? And that's been interesting too. But it's a different life here, and we're adjusting. But every day is a new adventure. It's great. The language is a challenge, to be sure, but I think we're going to be okay.
I've got a feeling you're going to be more than okay, actually.
We have traveled around quite a bit, and we do like this area.
Yeah.
And it's probably quite possible to find a property here with a beautiful view.
Yep.
That we intend to renovate with Richard through French Connections. And that's what we're hoping to do. That's our goal within the next year.
Fantastic project. That's really exciting. And actually, talking of French Connections, which of their services did you use? Did they help you bring the cats over, for example? Or did they help you with your visas? Or how did that work?
Yeah, so at this point, they've certainly helped with the visas. Richard has talked us off the ledge on many things not related to their services.
Insurance,
yeah,
banking, driver's licenses. They're all a quagmire and minefield in France, bureaucracy.
So one thing that was hugely helpful is that we had he and Mike and Richard figured out a car. And bought the car, and it was waiting for us at the airport.
That was huge.
That was.
Tell us about that. Tell us about that, Mike. How did?
Well, I mean, I'm kind of a car guy anyway, and Richard is too. And so he said, look, car buying in France is way different than in America. And we told him some things that we wanted, and I had done some research and ultimately decided on, one of the newer Korean Hyundais or Kias are getting really good reviews, but of course there's Toyota, Honda, but we also like the idea of maybe a French car, a Citroen or Peugeot or Renault. And in any event, he was able to find this Hyundai at a dealership in, how do you say it? Auch. It's Auch. It's outside of Toulouse, and he has turns out a relationship or knows somebody at that dealership. And when he told us, he's like, hey, I really feel like I think I can secure this vehicle for you. And he's like, man, buying a vehicle sight unseen, not driving it. I did go to a local Hyundai dealer in the US and I checked out one there, and it's like, you know what? Okay. And it was a good decision. It's a nice vehicle. We like it.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So convenient.
And it held a wheelchair and a walker.
Well, little did you know that you actually needed that, but
Exactly. That's exactly true. I know. And it's been great having Tyler here helping not only with physically and cooking and shopping, but the language, and he's helped with so much. Like, he's
got a lot more energy than
we have things on the way in a shipping container, and setting up the moving storage space. And talking to people at the insurance office, and going to places like the optician, where nobody speaks English. There are a lot of people speak English around here.
Setting up the phone plans.
Surely the hardest of all is setting up.
Oh my gosh, it was everything. I mean, even at the golf course, I had to buy, and it was still way cheaper than the U.S., but they don't have this in the U.S. I had to buy a $77 insurance policy at the golf course in case I hit somebody in the head with a golf ball, knock a golf ball through the window. It was really funny.
You know what? With your luck, who knows?
Exactly. Yeah, you never know.
If it's going to happen, it's going to happen in your family, I feel.
Oh my gosh.
I
yeah.
remember after the whole stressful move, and I had gone to the Netherlands before. We flew to Paris together, and I went up directly to Amsterdam, and my parents drove down because I was going there for my graduation.
Right.
And I remember getting the call after this whole stressful move. I remember like I was out with friends that night, and when I got the call that my mom fell and broke her ankle, and I was like, when is the bad luck gonna end?
Yeah.
So I'm hoping things are looking up. I'm very confident that what I like about my parents and what I'm happy for them here is that they're not afraid to talk to people. Even if there is a communication barrier, they're willing to just go for it. Especially my dad, he has no shame. He will talk to anyone, and that's a very good trait to have. Especially, I'm really glad he's starting to golf now, so he's gonna start meeting new people and creating a little network here. And then my mom is just amazing with handling all the administrative stuff, setting everything up. Like we would not be here if it wasn't for her.
No, I wouldn't have been able to move 2 blocks down the road. She did all the heavy lifting. You know, it's funny that Tyler mentioned that too, Lizzie. It's so hard for us, I don't know about you, but me, to remember when we were young. But we called Tyler, and it's about, midnight. And it ended up being 2:30 in the morning. He goes, "Oh no, I'm still out with my friends." It's like, what? You're not in bed?
Give it another month, and you guys might be out with your new friends at 2:30 in the morning.
We are eating dinner later.
Yes.
Yes. So 2 things that I'm looking forward to are, well, one, for me, physical therapy. I was actually in physical therapy during the COVID stuff, and it was a lifeline for me just socially.
Yeah.
And I think this will really help me, get out and meet some people, and they may not, we may not be able to communicate very well, but they may know English speakers that they can, connect us
And
to.
do you know what? You will find that the language, you will absorb it. It will become very familiar with the things you do. Isn't this right, Tyler? So the fact that you'll be on the golf course, there's a certain structure to language, isn't there, when you're playing a game like golf? You'll quickly know those terms and get to know those people. It will be easier than you think, particularly as you're the type of people who love to meet people. You'll want to talk. Therefore, that's the biggest incentive.
Once I get back on my feet, I am hoping to find like a French class, like an in-person French class that Mike and I can go to.
And to meet people.
To meet people, to have some accountability, and to, I need a little bit of the structure. Mike will be able to just hear it and pick it up. I need
Not necessarily. I'm getting old. I used to really pride myself on my memory, and it really does change, unfortunately. But Tyler can comment, I think, on the whole French thing, because immediately being in this area, he's like, "Oh wow, everybody has a Southern accent here."
The accent definitely changes. That's been something that, even as a French speaker, I've had to sort of recalibrate a couple times, because I'm like, what do you think?
That's so true. That the regional accents are very, once your ear is attuned, very noticeable. And sort of fun, isn't it, Tyler? It's sort of fun.
Oh yeah.
The difference.
It's nice to see that there's diversity within France as well.
I think so.
I'm also excited to see when my parents start taking French courses, whether they're gonna start speaking with a more Southern accent or not, because depending on the teachers here.
Lizzie, we'll tell you very quickly, because I think it's important. When we realized that it was probably going to make more sense, as Richard described it, as boots on the ground, to find a place to live rather than buying someplace before we came here. So Lorraine found us a place to rent, a fully furnished place, which is where we're sitting right now.
Yes.
It's a renovated barn. It has 3-foot thick stone walls and a slate roof, and it's interesting. The first night we had rented it over the summer, but we didn't occupy it because we weren't here, but we had to secure it. And the first night we were here, Lorraine pointed out a spider on the wall. Okay. And then Mike, if she was more squeamish, we wouldn't be in here right now. But she captured it and put it outside, because she doesn't like to kill anything. But anyway, this it's on a farm, and it's the family. I think it seems like by French standards, I don't know, but it's over 300 hectares, like 800 acres.
Wow.
And they have both dairy and beef cattle. They have a full solar array on their barn roof. They collect, all the manure, of course, which goes into a thing. They collect the methane gas and generate electricity, which
Oh.
supplies enough electricity for 200 to 300 homes. And
Oh.
I asked and got a tour of the whole farm, and one of the owners, Alexander, invited me that when we go to harvest the corn and cut the corn, if you want to come along and ride in the tractor. And I'm like, why would I not want to do that? This is awesome, So so we're living on this large farm, and there's an estate right next door that looks like a Stephen King movie should be filmed there. Okay.
Oh.
And so it's really nice, and we're right outside the city. So it's the best of both worlds, really.
Yeah, and one of the we didn't really mention this. Another thing that the first time that we came here, really, it was weird. I sort of understood the whole idea of roots. I mean that, the US is so young,
Yeah.
and here, just the history, going into a cathedral near where Tyler went to high school when he was here, and the sign up, Joan of Arc attended mass here, and
1429.
Yeah.
I was like, my head exploded.
yeah, and, and just really trying to immerse ourselves in the history, and Mike's a history fan, and his dad was wounded in World War II in France.
Yeah, very badly wounded in France.
Oh.
And so that really, it's like, this is going to give me an opportunity to retrace his steps, where these battles took place. And it's a miracle I'm here, because it's a miracle that he lived, really.
Absolutely. What a lovely connection to the country you've chosen to adopt.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's indirect. And then to top that all off, I had something what I believe to be so unusual. And sometimes you think, well, there are no real coincidences. But Lorraine had to go back for her 3-week checkup at the hospital 2 days ago. And while they were getting x-rays and so forth, I was wandering around out in the hall, and I noticed a painting on the wall in the hospital, and it looked interesting. It was a woman, a drawing, and you could tell it was a French woman, kind of the, what do I want to say, the Impressionist type. And she was looking at a painting on the wall like I was looking at her. And I looked down, and my grandmother on my father's side and one of her sisters were very good artists. It was passed on to my sister and also to Tyler. Tyler's a very good artist. I mean, they could paint, they could sew, they could play music. They were very. My grandmother was a florist and a seamstress, but she was a good oil painter, and she also painted with chalk. And they did, as I realized, they took lessons from a guy, and his name was Tristan Richards. And I look at this painting on the wall in the Rodez Hospital, and that was the artist. And I thought, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. What are those odds?
What are those odds? But don't you think these are all such positive
I do.
signs?
Amazing. Yeah.
Really?
There's a reason we're here.
Any last words on French connections, on Richard?
You know what? He's been so easy to trust. And that's, I mean, above anything else, that has been so comforting to know that there's somebody there. There have been a couple times, when we were at the visa office, that it's like, something didn't get finalized, and finalized,
get on the
and
phone.
got on the phone, and
they took care of it.
They took care of it while we were sitting in front of the person. I mean, it was really.
Juliet has been great.
Yeah.
And Richard, and to hear that from Lorraine, I mean, Tyler and I both defer to her sensibilities and her ability to do administrative things, and her being comfortable like that with Richard was a really big thing for all of us.
I know that everybody at French Connections will be wishing you all the very, very best. And
Yes,
if you
thank you.
had one thing to say to somebody who might be thinking of coming in your why not attitude, thinking of coming, or maybe could use some help from Richard and the team, what would you say to them?
I would say, do your homework, okay? Do some research. Come and explore areas that you may be interested in, which is what we did. And when we really did that, Lizzie, back in April and May, we were here for over 2 weeks.
Mm.
It rained almost every day, and we thought, well, if France is going to throw some bad stuff at us, this is it. And it literally and figuratively did not dampen our spirits.
Oh,
That was like, you know what, this place is still really cool, and try to experience it before you take the plunge, and then, hey, why not?
Yeah, and I would say, you know, as you're going through the decision-making process, really surround yourself with why not people who will be encouraging, who will, you know, help support you through, you know, what is a really stressful time.
Mhm. Yeah, I would say to be excited about change, to embrace the chaos and the struggle, because there will be chaos and struggle, but to be excited about every day being different and every day being a new challenge. And that's something I'm also excited about for my parents, because I mean, especially now that my dad's retired, it's like every day has been different here. They've been more active than they have been in such a long time, and that's so nice to see.
I feel joyful for you. You're such a lovely family, and
Oh,
just
thank you.
talking to you and hearing the excitement in your voices is really what it's all about. You're going to have such a great time. I hope we can all check back in sometime next year and see how you're doing and hear your latest adventures, because I think that would be very
Yes.
positive. Oh, guys, thank you for talking to us. Thank you so much for sharing your story.